I'm Karen Colligan, and welcome to the Let's Talk Leadership podcast. So why do I care about leadership? As the founder of PeopleThink, and in my tenure as a leader, as a consultant, and as a coach, I've certainly seen my share of very good leaders and my share of very bad leaders. And I thought it'd be great to share the wisdom from the very good leaders. Hence the Let's Talk Leadership podcast. You're going to hear from a variety of leaders who are in a variety of roles, sharing their leadership expertise by answering the same 6 questions. Every single leader is unique in their style and approach, and we want to capture that uniqueness and provide you, the listener, with a diverse way of looking at leadership. So let's get moving and talk to our next leadership guest. In this episode, I am thrilled to be speaking to Dr. Lauren Petrea, who's the Executive Director of Talent Acquisition at Aldine Independent School District. We're going to hear all about Lauren's approach to leadership. So Lauren, welcome, and thank you for being with us today.
Hi, Karen, and hi, listeners. Thank you for having me today.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. We're going to have a great conversation, Lauren. So before we even get into that leadership conversation, why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are and give us a snapshot of your current role at Aldine Independent School District?
Yeah, you got it. So I am an executive director in a school district, and Aldine ISD is one of the largest school districts in the country. So we have 84 schools. And that means we have 84 principals. We have almost 200 assistant principals. And my job is to ensure that we staff all of our schools, teachers, paras, secretaries, everyone, and make sure that not only we treat them well and take care of our employees, but also to ensure that we increase retention and also bring talents into our district. So the fun part of my job is being able to go to different universities, meet with teacher candidates. The not so fun part is when I have to do investigation. So dealing with grievances or file reviews where we have reports of things that are happening on campuses. And I need to go in and interview, investigate, and then sometimes terminate employees, which is very hard thing to do, but something that is very important that I do.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And to think about, so you have 84 schools. How many principals did you say you had?
So we have 84 schools. So we have 84 principals.
Right.
And we have almost 200 assistant principals because we have in high schools, we could have 5 to 6 APs. It depends on the size. We also have primary schools with APs. So it depends on student enrollment. So we have a lot of school administrators and counselors and instructional specialists. So not only I have to know all these positions and their codes and compensation and all of that, and they start different days, but we have to ensure that we're looking at the district budget and hire all of them and hire good people, which is the most important part of being a good leader.
Yeah, hiring good people, and you said it earlier too, retaining those good people. Let's not forget about that. And I'm sure we're going to get into that in a little bit, Lauren. So love that. 84 schools, 200 assistant principals. That's a big role, to say everything else that's going on in terms of the staffing. So let's then move on, Lauren, and let's get into our questions a little bit. And so the first question is always my first question, and it is, there's so many ways to define leadership, and it's really personal, I believe, to each individual. Certainly there's skills that need to be maintained and learned, and it's so personal. So how do you, Lauren, define leadership?
So the way I define leadership is someone who's able to influence others. And this can be positive. It could be also negative. Mm-hmm. So you can have influence in others in a negative way, but you can also have influence in others in a positive way. And I'm a huge believer that leadership is not a position. So being a leader, you can be a leader as a student, you can be a leader as a teacher, you can be a leader as a custodian, but someone who's able to influence others to do things, that's my definition.
Nice. And you're exactly right. Leadership is not a position. And what I believe is that every person who, whatever they do for a living is a leader. And they
Mhm.
have to be able to work on whatever they do, again, for a living as a leader of that position. So I'm with you on that all of the way. Love that. All right. So values. As a leader, I think it's imperative that we really get clarity around values because it's really our guiding light. It gets us to really determine how are we going to make those easy decisions, and much more importantly, how are we going to make those really tough decisions so
Mhm.
we can sleep at night. So tell me, what are your top 3 values, Laura?
So one, good leaders have to have integrity. So you have to say what you're going to do. You practice what you preach. Someone who is honest, someone who is a visionary, you need to have integrity to do that. So when you are making decisions, you're not making decisions based on what's best for you, but you're making decision that's best for your company. For me, it's my students. They're the clients that I think about. And someone with great integrity will always have people that have respect for you. And this is something that you carry every day in everything you do. So, how I treat when I'm at a grocery store, to how I act as a parent when I'm on the soccer field, to how I am as a friend, I need to always make sure that I check my integrity and be very careful with, how I carry myself. The other is commitment to the people you serve. When I think about my employees and my team members, I think of them as my family, and not like, let's go hang out and have a good time. But, when your kid is struggling in math or your kid is struggling in science, you don't say, hey, this is not working out, so I don't want you as my kid anymore. Right? Like, you're invested, right? You try to find a tutor, you work with them, you try to find out their strengths and what are different ways to work on this. And sometimes I see organizations where they see an employee struggling and they're like, okay, this is not working out. Commitment, as in, I'm here for you, I'm working with you, I'm going to give you my 110%. And when you treat your employees with your full commitment to make sure that they're better, I think that they will do anything for you. When you have a boss who's really there for you, because no one wants to struggle. People don't go to work and say, I just want to do, 40% of my work because this is who I am. It's not like that. Things have happened where you're undermined, where there was no trust, or where you are not given opportunities to shine. Things have happened where you're jaded, and a good leader is able to turn that around. So commitment to your employees and your team, I think that's very important. The last thing is someone who's able to build trust, someone who's relationship oriented. As a school principal, the big message we get is you go into your school, you watch 90 days. So those 90 days, you are learning about your students, the classrooms, the curriculum, the district, and you're listening and you're learning and you're gathering data. And then you prioritize what you need to do and make an actionable plan. And I think that when you are a leader in your organization and you focus on that relationship part, get to know everyone, understand exactly what they do. So many times people going to a new position and they don't take the time learning about what everyone actually have to do, their responsibilities. So important. And getting to know them and like how they are, who they are as a person, their passion, their hobbies, building that trust, you're going to have so much more come out of your team when you're able to do that. So I think those are things that I value.
Yeah. And that whole thing around building trust in the relationship, I mean, that's really about having empathy and compassion. And as you said, getting to know them as a human being, as a person, so that you can have different conversations with them depending on whatever they do for a living for you. That there's no question about that. So that's really important. So you have integrity, you have commitment to employees and team, and you have building trust around relationships and really getting to know the person.
Yes.
Love that. Okay, great. Okay, so Lauren, what's the best advice you were ever given by a leader?
I had so many good ones, but the one that I always think about is when you talk, anywhere you are, Pretend that your boss is sitting in a corner listening to you.
Oh, wow.
Because you're going to be so careful with what you say. And as a leader, we forget that whatever we say means so much more. So when you go to a meeting and you say something like, "Oh, I'm so busy, I have so much going on," the impression you're giving to your team is that we're not important or you have more on your plate than others. So everything we do, how we walk into a room, how we smile, how we greet people, people are watching us, right? And one of the best advice I got was that I want you to, wherever you are, think about your boss standing in a corner listening to you. And I think if we could all be mindful of how we speak to others, that will prevent so many problems, right? Sometimes people get so comfortable that they overshare.
Yeah.
Sometimes people are not really reading the room because you feel that you need to speak up more because you're in a certain position. That is not being a good leader. Being a good leader is listening to others, but also listening to what's not being said,
Mhm.
watching the nonverbal cue, and really allowing people to speak up and giving everyone opportunity to do so, but also stand in your ground. You need to really articulate, what you believe in. I've seen leaders that are so nice that when something crazy said in a meeting, they don't actually address it. That could be a problem because people could walk away from that meeting thinking that you agreed with that. And so it's so important for you to summarize at the end of the meeting. And I think when you think that your boss is listening, I think you definitely, it's like when you're driving and you're not doing anything wrong, but when a police officer starts driving by you, you know how you check yourself, like how you're sitting and you're even though you didn't do anything wrong. And I think it's something like that.
It's exactly like that. All of a sudden you get nervous and you're thinking, I
Yeah.
haven't even done anything wrong. No, I love that. And I love that whole idea about standing your ground. In the Keep It Real leadership program, one of our principles is to be bold, and it's to have a backbone. You do it in a respectful way, and your team has to recognize that you're supporting them, you're taking care of them, you are positioning them, and being bold, or as you said, standing your ground is really, really important in terms of leadership, because when you don't do something, then your employees are going to look at you and say, well, wait a minute, if he or she didn't get reprimanded about that, well, why do they get away with it? Maybe I can get away with that. And it just sends the wrong message. No question about that.
Absolutely.
Love it. Okay, so we're obviously going through an enormous amount of transition and change. We're talking about layoffs, we're talking about the social awakening, we're talking about quiet quitting, and we're talking about the implications of all of those things. So,
Mhm.
how do you lead through transition and change?
So I think the big thing that leaders have to think about is meet them where they are at. So
Mm,
during COVID, when I was an administrator in California and we went from, going to a traditional school to using online school, there were so many teachers, one, were scared to go back to school for various different reasons. But two, they were so scared to adapt to the online way of teaching,
mhm.
right? So when you as a leader understand where teachers are at, so you do a survey or you do a training and you do small group lessons. I actually went and taught online lessons myself so that I could test out how it works
Ah,
rather than telling teachers, this is the new tool, go for it.
yeah.
I practiced, I worked on groups, I worked on letting people into the room, and then I created snapshot of things that teachers need to know. And I think it's so important when you're adding change in your organization because it happens all the time because you can't stay steady. You have to meet your employees where they're at emotionally, intellectually, and understand like what is that we need to do to move people forward. So now the big thing is the teacher shortage in my school district. So we have a lot of people leaving the profession, less people getting into education. And I was trying to understand, okay, what are the reasons? So the reasons I get is, one, the new generation of workers, they love the flexibility in work hours.
Mm-hmm.
Traditional school setting doesn't allow that, right? Like, we need you here at 8 a.m. We need you to be here until 4 p.m. You don't get to just stay home and send, work to your students. Two, a lot of people, they want to do some sort of remote work. That's not really possible in school setting. It's something that we can try to add, but that's not something that we can do. So based on all of these, there's some of the things that we came up with. So one is, during teacher workday, we are allowing some remote work. So these are days when students don't come to school. We work with our school principals and we do a virtual learning and we do a on-site learning so that teachers have that flexibility. The
Nice.
other thing is, with the traditional work setting, so we have learned that, well, these are the reasons why, teachers love working with students. So it could be that they want para-educational support. So they want a teacher's aide in the classroom. So we looked at how we can utilize them. Some of the teachers really talked about smaller class sizes. So we looked at student enrollment. So there are things that you can do to make changes, but you have to meet them where they're at, and they need to be able to tell you, these are the things that we need in order for us to be successful, and make changes from there.
Yeah, because there's nothing but worse than when you have someone say, this is the way you should do it. And then you get inquisitive and say, okay, so tell me, when did you test that? How do you know this? And then all of a sudden they say, well, because X, Y, and Z does it, because this is the new trend, because, fill in the blank. And you realize, well, wait a minute, if you're not coming from a place of knowledge, why are you telling me to do this? So yeah, testing, meet them where they are. Love that. Yeah, great. Okay, good. So number 5, we know the best leaders are curious and they're always learning, and let us hope so, right? So what tools and resources, Lauren, do you use to make sure that you're continuing to grow and learn and bring new ideas to your organization?
So one thing that I do is I surround myself with really good people. So I think that when you're surrounding your environment and people you spend time with are go-getters, they deeply care about the community, they are well informed, then you also learn so much from them. But when you surround yourself with people that are just not interested in improving themselves, yes, you can help them. But if every single one of your friends or your social group, if they're like that, then that's what's norm to you as well. So I push myself. So one of the things that I am so grateful that I did was I threw my doctoral program with USC, and it would have been way cheaper for me to go to a different institution, but I wanted to go to a university where, one, they're doing amazing things, but two, going to school, it's really networking too.
Yes.
And I met incredible people that are doing incredible things. So one that I'm doing right now is I'm working with chief learning officers from different big Fortune 500 companies. And we are writing a playbook for chief human resources and chief learning officers. And
Nice.
We have been meeting in different places, working with venture capital firms, getting funding and creating proposals. And that's been so great to meet and interact with people that are just the best in their field. So that's been really inspiration. The other thing I'm doing is I've been working with different women leaders, and we just wrote a book. So I just published a book in June, and it's called Fearless Female Leaders.
Love
and
it.
I always wanted to write a book, but I just never could finish a whole book, and to collaborate it with other women that are interested in writing a book together. And we each wrote a chapter. And the person who led it is my actually dissertation chair from USC, and she's the one that reached out to me. And I'm also part of a Chi Omega leadership team. So I graduated as a Chi Omega a long time ago, my college days, but I stayed active. So I was the president of the alumni group in California. I was an advisor at Stanford, and now I'm part of the national team. And so I go to different universities and run leadership sessions. And that's just been so great because we build curriculum together. We meet in Memphis every other year. We go to different places, and We work with collegiate members. So I do little things to keep myself not only motivated, but to be around amazing people. So you learn from others, because I work sometimes just in HR and it's a very specific role. And not often I can like talk to a CEO of a company or someone who is producing a Broadway show, but being involved in different things allows me to not only have relationship with them, but they get their perspectives and learn so much from people doing different work.
Yeah, and it's so exciting to be around people who are really smart and love what they do and do it really well, especially when it's outside your core competency. Because again, from what you're saying, just being out there in this world, looking at, the Fortune 500 companies who are really doing the really good work around, HR, about the learning, and the VCs who want to fund them and why, and it's like a little class in an MBA, if you will, because that's really what's happening.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great. Love it. All right. So our last question, for me, when I think about leadership, I think about how important it is to be a whole human being and not just be able to go, oh, I'm going into work, I'm putting on my leadership hat, I'm leaving work, I'm taking off my leadership hat. It's all, you are who you are. And so this last question is really about what brings you joy? How do you fill up your soul when you're outside of the work environment or even inside the work environment? But what I'm thinking about is like art or music or again, whatever, what fills your soul so that you can come to work and be like, I'm ready, I'm here, I'm whole, I'm all glory.
Yeah. So I love to eat.
Join the club.
I'm a big foodie. So I love going to new restaurants or going to a restaurant recommended by people that it could be a hole in a wall, but like people line up to go there. Or I love going to Michelin star restaurants all over the world. And that's like a gift to myself. I was just listening to something the other day, and it was about people spend money on what they like. So like if you're into fashion, you spend a lot of money on fashion. Like if you're really into skincare, you spend a lot of money on skincare, and you like concerts. I know somebody who already went to Taylor Swift concert 3 times. Those tickets are crazy expensive, right? But that is that person's joy. That's what they want to do. I love to eat, and I love eating food from different cultures. So I love going to an Ethiopian restaurant and trying Ethiopian food. I love going to a Colombian restaurant and trying Colombian food. And I also love having friends from those cultures. So I go with them and they can tell me like, traditionally we eat it like this, or you combine this with this. And I love learning about that and then learning phrases from them. So that's my passion. So eating different types of food. And then whenever there's an opportunity to go to another country, I go. So I just got back from the Philippines. It was an incredible experience. I was in Denmark and Norway a few months ago as well. And so not only you learn about it here in the US, but to actually go there and see it yourself and how people are, I was blown away by how nice people are in the Philippines. They are just so polite everywhere you go. That is not always the case in every country I've visited. But like that, resonated with me, just the customer service and the kindness of people. But yeah, that makes me happy.
Yeah, it sure does, because you are just lighting up just talking about eating, and I'm getting hungry just listening to you. I can tell you that. Wow, it's fabulous. And I love the idea that you will experience it with people who are that culture so that you can even learn more. It goes back to what you indicated about how to learn. It's, I have to surround myself with really smart people. Well, you surround yourself with people who know the culture, and then that way you get to eat with them as well. And yeah. So thanks really so much for your insights and your thoughts about leadership today. It's inspiring to hear you. And I love that how you expand your kind of the way that you're thinking to make sure that you're bringing new ideas into your current work, because that makes all the difference in the world. So, that's really wonderful. So I thank you so much for your wise words, and you're giving us so much information about who you are as a leader and how you look outbound at leadership. Love that. Thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me today. And then I appreciate listeners listening. And I think it's so important, Karen, what you're doing, because so many people get into a certain position, but they never really worked on their leadership skills. And to have you supporting them, because I know so many school administrators that actually went back into teaching or went into a different profession because once they took on that leadership role, they didn't have the proper support and they made a lot of mistakes. And the fact that you're able to provide people that, and then for the listeners to take the time to listen different leaders in different industries, I think that's also very powerful.
Yeah, thank you. And I love it. And what's so shocking to me all the time, Lauren, is how often people get put into leadership roles and they don't have any training and they're not going to get any training. And they think because you were really great at whatever expertise you were in, you will be a good leader. And as you and I both know, leadership is a set of skills, and you have to have those skills in order to be a powerful leader. It just is what it is. And so thank you for that. Yes, I really do love this. So everybody listening, you so excited to have you here. And you've been listening to Dr. Lauren Petrea, Executive Director, Talent Acquisition at Aldine Independent School District. If this leadership podcast was of interest to you, go to our YouTube channel, People Think SF, and look at all the other distinguished leaders I had the pleasure of interviewing. You're going to learn so much about the uniqueness of leadership. I know I have. And don't forget to share it with your colleagues. Till the next episode of the Let's Talk Leadership podcast, have a good one. And don't forget to keep it real. Music by Poddington Bear and editing by Mary Lee Williams. Thanks, everybody. We'll talk to you real soon. Bye now.